Welcome to Monobiology. In this lesson, you're going to learn more about the heart. So, there is actually a lot of confusion amongst people about what animals actually have hearts. Some people I've even heard in the past say that they think some plants have hearts. They don't actually say plants have hearts, but they do tell me that all living things have hearts. Remember when we did the Mrs. Nerg assignment? We found out that there are different characteristics that all living things have. Well, certainly a heart was not one of them. However, many animals do have hearts. Let's take a look at some of these different organisms and the types of hearts that they actually have. So we'll start over here with the insect heart. And the insect heart is a very primitive heart that does in fact pump blood. Now insects have what we call an open circulatory system, which is a little bit different than a closed circulatory system that something like an earthworm might have. But nonetheless, they still require blood to be pumped to different areas. And so their heart is a tiny pump that would push blood into the body cavities. Now the earthworm has a series of 5 small pumps called aortic arches. And again, they're more primitive than full organ hearts that you find in higher order organisms. Both of these organisms are called invertebrates, which means they don't have a backbone or a spinal cord the same way that vertebrates do. Now, when we get to the vertebrates, we have fish, we have amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds. Fish have a 2-chambered heart. 1, 2. Amphibians have a 3-chambered heart. Reptiles have a 4-chambered heart, as do mammals and birds. Okay? The circulatory systems are very different, and as you can see, as the organisms get more complex, the hearts change as well. You go from a 2-chambered to a 3-chambered to a 4-chambered in the vertebrates. So, depending on the sophistication of the organism, the circulatory system, and more specifically the heart, actually is more sophisticated. Now you might be wondering why some of these pictures are actually colored in red and blue, some of these different things. And the reason is because in red we have oxygenated blood, which means the blood is carrying oxygen. And in blue we have deoxygenated blood, which means the blood is no longer carrying oxygen. Now we're going to take a much closer look at a human heart, which would fit under a 4-chambered one since we're mammals. Okay, so in this section of the video lesson, you are going to use your picture that I gave you in class to label and define the different parts of the heart. Okay, so as you can see, I have several labels here. They're not in the right order yet, so we're gonna leave it like it is for now. Don't write anything down yet. We're gonna move these around, and we're going to label this diagram. And as we label the diagram, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about each part that you're going to write down. Okay, so let's start with just a really basic concept that I want you to get. And that concept is this. The heart actually has 2 sides for reference. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line somewhat through the middle of the heart. Just draw it like this. Okay, so on this side of the heart, I want you to imagine that this is not your heart. It's in fact a heart of someone that you're looking at. And since it's the heart of someone you're looking at, the right and left side would be opposite to you. So even though this is technically the right side of the heart that we're looking at, because it's somebody else's heart, it's actually the left side. So this is actually the left side of the heart, and this is the right side of the heart, which is kind of backwards to what you might think. So that's an important piece right there. This is the left side of the heart, and this is the right side of the heart. So when we label things, keep that in mind. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to label different parts. Okay, so I'm going to start with this guy here, the septum. The septum is this label right here. This is the correct spot for the septum. And essentially the septum is a wall that exists between these two chambers of the heart. And as you can imagine, it prevents blood from flowing back and forth between these two chambers. Okay, so the septum is located here, and it is, in fact, a wall that prevents blood from moving back and forth between these two chambers. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's do the AV valve. Now, there are actually two AV valves, and I'm going to show you where they are. I'm going to have to move something else out of the way here. Hold on a sec. Move that guy out of the way. Alright, so the AV valve is this guy right here. Okay? Now there are actually two, and the AV valve stands for atrioventricular, and it basically means it's in between the atrium, and the ventricle. This is an atrium, and this is a ventricle. Atria are the chambers on the top of the heart, and the ventricles are the chambers on the bottom. The AV valve is a valve that's on both sides. There'd be one here too, and one here, that prevents the backflow of blood when the heart pumps. Okay, so blood is supposed to move from the atrium to the ventricle, and this valve prevents it from going the opposite way, in the wrong direction. Now the next one we're going to talk about is called, and again there's two of these, it's called the semilunar valve. And I'm going to have to overlap it a little bit. Okay, so the semilunar valve goes to this point right here. And again, there's one on the other side as well. I'll move this out of the way so you can see. Move that guy out of the way. So there's one semilunar valve here and another semilunar valve here. And those valves prevent blood from going from the arteries back into the ventricles. Okay, so the semilunar valves prevent blood from going from the arteries back into the ventricles. Okay, now that we've labeled those basic parts, let's label the major chambers of the heart. Remember, there's 4 chambers in a mammalian heart, so let's start with the right atrium. So here's the right atrium. Notice that it's blue. Why did I color it blue? Now, in order for me to do this correctly, I have to put it on the right side. Remember, the right side is actually the left side. The correct side is actually the left side for the right atrium. And this guy right here, just shorten that up. This guy right here is the right atrium. Notice that it's blue. That's important. Alright, let's move on. And if that's the left atrium, then I'll have to move you out of the way, right ventricle. There we go. This is the left atrium. Okay, so the atria, atrium is singular, atria is plural. The atrium is in fact a chamber that is on the top of the heart. Okay, and they are the chambers that receive blood from outside of the heart. Okay, notice that the right atrium is blue and the left atrium is red. Think about what that might mean. Okay, let's talk about the ventricles. I'm going to move these guys out of the way for a sec here. I'm going to get my right ventricle. Notice that it's also blue, and the ventricles are the chambers that are underneath the atria. So I'm going to go ahead and get my left ventricle here. Notice the right ventricle is blue, and the left ventricle is in fact red, which makes a difference. Okay. Alright, we have a few things left to label here. I'm going to move this guy up here. No, not that guy. This guy. The aorta. The aorta is the biggest blood vessel in your body. Okay? And it comes off of the left ventricle. I'm going to show you how it flows. The blood would flow from the left ventricle into the aorta. You're going underneath this part right here. So you can see how it kind of comes here, and then this is over top. You're going underneath that and into this area here. Okay, now, the aorta from here actually wraps around behind the heart, and you can see the aorta coming down here. So the aorta not only is up here, but it's also down here. Okay, so the aorta wraps around the back of the heart, and it's responsible for delivering oxygenated blood to basically everywhere in our body. Now that's a bit of a misnomer. It's going to branch off into other arteries, but it basically carries all the oxygenated blood that is going to go to the entire body. Alright, so those are those areas there. I've got a couple other things left to do here. Let's do the pulmonary veins. The left pulmonary veins are here. These guys right here, there's two of them. Just get this here. There's one, two, and then over here, I don't have a label for them, but I'm going to get you guys to label them anyway, are the right pulmonary veins. These guys right here. Now these ones are red, as would these ones be. All of the pulmonary veins are red. Now the reason they're red is because they are bringing blood from the lungs to the heart. Okay? And the left pulmonary vein is going to empty into the left atrium. Okay? So now let's talk about the left pulmonary artery. Let's go here. The left pulmonary artery is right here. Again, sorry it's so big to see, but the thing would go right there, left pulmonary artery. Okay? And notice that it is blue. That's because it's carrying blood to the lungs. Pulmonary means lungs. Anytime you see that word, you should be thinking lungs. Over here, we would have the right pulmonary artery, so you can label this one as well. Okay, there's only a couple left. Right here, at the bottom, we have the inferior vena cava, and then up here, at the top, we have the superior vena cava. So here's the inferior vena cava for this line right here, and here's the superior vena cava right here. So the inferior vena cava, it brings blood from the lower portion of the body back to the heart and empties into the right atrium. The superior vena cava brings blood from the upper portion of the body, so it would be like the head, the shoulders, the neck, and the arms. It brings deoxygenated blood back from the body to the right atrium. You can see down here a little tiny like black spot. That's like the opening where the inferior vena cava would come in. There would be another similar opening here. Okay? So again, those are the labels, the things that you need to know. Make sure you take notes on what they do, the basics of what they do. We'll go through it in class. And if there's anything in here that you weren't 100% sure about, make sure you write down the questions and bring those to class. That, in a nutshell, is an introduction to the mammalian heart.